In the vibrant city of Atlanta, the Williams family appeared to embody the quintessential American dream. Jonathan Williams, a charismatic and successful entrepreneur, was often seen as a beacon of hope and inspiration in his community. With a thriving business, a beautiful home, and a loving family, they seemed to have it all. His wife, a dedicated mother and talented artist, complemented Jonathan's public persona perfectly, often showcasing their life on social media, where smiles and laughter were abundant. Their children, excelling in school and sports, added to the image of a perfect family, frequently participating in community events and charity work, which further solidified their status as role models. However, beneath this polished exterior lay a complex web of hidden struggles and unspoken tensions that would ultimately unravel their seemingly idyllic life. While Jonathan projected an image of confidence and success, the reality was starkly different. Behind closed doors, the family grappled with issues that were far from the picture-perfect narrative they presented to the world. Jonathan's relentless pursuit of success often came at the expense of his family life, leading to feelings of neglect and resentment among his loved ones. His wife, feeling increasingly isolated, struggled with her own identity as she balanced her artistic aspirations with the demands of motherhood. The children, caught in the crossfire of their parents' unaddressed issues, began to exhibit signs of distress, feeling the weight of expectations that were often unspoken yet palpable. This contrast between Jonathan's public persona and the turmoil within the family set the stage for a tragic unraveling that would shake their lives to the core. As the story unfolds, it becomes clear that the themes of betrayal, trust, and the consequences of unchecked power are intricately woven into the fabric of the Williams family's narrative. Jonathan's ambition, once seen as a driving force for good, began to morph into a source of division and conflict. The very qualities that had propelled him to success also blinded him to the needs of those closest to him. His inability to recognize the emotional toll his relentless drive was taking on his family led to a growing chasm between them. Trust, once a cornerstone of their relationships, began to erode as secrets and lies emerged from the shadows. The family's struggles were compounded by the pressures of maintaining their public image, creating a facade that became increasingly difficult to uphold. In this exploration of the Williams family's tragic story, we delve into the complexities of human relationships and the often hidden struggles that lie beneath the surface. The consequences of Jonathan's unchecked ambition and the resulting betrayals within the family serve as a poignant reminder of the fragility of trust and the devastating impact of neglect. As we peel back the layers of their lives, we are invited to reflect on the broader implications of power dynamics within families and the importance of open communication and emotional support. The Williams family's journey is not just a tale of loss, but also a cautionary narrative about the dangers of prioritizing success over connection, ultimately leading to a profound reckoning that would change their lives forever. The Williams family held a prominent position in the Atlanta community, their public image meticulously crafted and widely admired. At the center of this image was Jonathan Williams, a respected pastor known for his charismatic sermons and unwavering commitment to his congregation. His reputation extended beyond the church walls. He was a community leader who actively engaged in various initiatives aimed at uplifting those in need. Jonathan's ability to connect with people from all walks of life made him a beloved figure, and his influence was felt in local charities, youth programs, and community outreach efforts. His dedication to service and his genuine compassion for others earned him accolades and respect, solidifying his status as a pillar of the community. Supporting Jonathan in his endeavors was his wife, Grace Williams, who played a crucial role in enhancing the family's public image. Grace was not only a devoted mother, but also a talented artist, whose work often reflected themes of hope and resilience. She was known for her warm demeanor and nurturing spirit, qualities that endeared her to many in the community. Grace frequently organized events at their church, from art exhibitions to family-oriented gatherings, fostering a sense of unity among the congregation. Her presence complemented Jonathan's leadership, and together they presented a picture of a harmonious family dedicated to their faith and community. Grace's unwavering support for her husband and her active involvement in various charitable causes further solidified the family's reputation as role models, embodying the values of love, service, and commitment. Their daughter, Ashley Williams, was another shining star in the family's public persona. A bright and ambitious young woman, Ashley was known for her academic excellence and leadership skills. She was actively involved in her school, participating in various clubs and organizations that showcased her talents and dedication. Ashley's promising future was a source of pride for the Williams family, and her achievements were often highlighted in community newsletters and local media. Her close friendship with Mia Carter, a fellow student and aspiring journalist, further amplified her visibility in the community. The two girls were inseparable, often seen volunteering together at local shelters or participating in school events, embodying the spirit of service that the Williams family championed. The bond between Ashley and Mia was not just a friendship, it was a partnership built on shared values and aspirations. They supported each other through academic challenges and celebrated each other's successes, becoming role models for their peers. Their friendship was emblematic of the Williams family's commitment to fostering connections and uplifting others, reinforcing the family's image as a nurturing and supportive unit. As Ashley navigated her teenage years, her parents encouraged her ambitions, instilling in her the importance of giving back to the community that had embraced them. As the Williams family continued to project an image of success and harmony to the outside world, subtle signs of trouble began to emerge, particularly through the eyes of their daughter, Ashley. Initially, she admired her father, Jonathan, for his unwavering dedication to his congregation and the community. However, over time, Ashley started to notice a shift in her father's behavior. The warmth and patience that had characterized his interactions were increasingly replaced by moments of irritability and frustration. Small things that would have once elicited a gentle response now seemed to trigger an unexpected temper. Ashley found herself walking on eggshells, uncertain of what might set him off. The man who had always been her rock was becoming a source of anxiety, and she struggled to reconcile this change with the father she had always known. Mia Carter, Ashley's close friend, began to pick up on the tension surrounding her. As someone who had always been a confidant for Ashley, Mia sensed that something was amiss. She noticed the way Ashley's laughter had become less frequent, and how her vibrant spirit seemed dimmed by an invisible weight. Concerned for her friend, Mia made it her mission to understand the situation better. She would often ask Ashley how things were at home, trying to coax her into sharing her feelings. However, Ashley found it increasingly difficult to articulate the turmoil she was experiencing. The pressure to maintain the family's perfect image loomed large, and she felt trapped between her loyalty to her family and her need to express her growing unease. Mia's attempts to reach out were met with vague reassurances from Ashley, who was reluctant to reveal the cracks in her family's facade. As the weeks passed, the isolation Ashley felt deepened. The once close-knit family dynamic began to fray, and the perfect image they had cultivated started to crumble. Ashley felt as though she was living in a world where everyone else saw the Williams family as a model of success, while she alone bore witness to the unraveling reality. The disconnect between her family's public persona and their private struggles created a chasm that was difficult to bridge. She longed for the days when laughter filled their home and her father's presence was a source of comfort rather than tension. The weight of her family's expectations pressed heavily on her shoulders, and she felt increasingly alone in her observations. In her heart, Ashley grappled with feelings of betrayal and confusion. How could the man who preached love and compassion at the pulpit exhibit such anger at home? The dissonance between Jonathan's public persona and his private behavior left her questioning not only her father's integrity, but also her own understanding of family. The pressure to uphold the family's reputation made it difficult for her to seek help or confide in others, further deepening her sense of isolation. Mia's concern, while comforting, only served as a reminder of the stark contrast between the image they projected and the reality Ashley was experiencing. As the signs of trouble became more pronounced, Ashley found herself at a crossroads. The perfect life she had once taken for granted was slipping away, and she was left to navigate the complexities of her family's hidden struggles alone. The isolation she felt was suffocating, and the burden of maintaining the family's image weighed heavily on her heart. In this tumultuous period, Ashley began to realize that the facade of perfection could not withstand the pressures of reality, and the journey ahead would require courage and honesty to confront the truth that lay beneath the surface. As the tension within the Williams family escalated, an unexpected and troubling dynamic began to unfold between Jonathan, Mia, and Ashley. What started as a close friendship between Ashley and Mia began to take on a more complicated tone as Jonathan's behavior shifted. Mia, who had always been a supportive friend, found herself drawn to Jonathan's charisma and charm. Their interactions, initially innocent and friendly, began to take on a more intimate quality. Jonathan, in his moments of vulnerability, confided in Mia about the pressures he faced as a pastor and community leader, seeking solace in her understanding. This emotional connection, however, blurred the lines of propriety and raised red flags for Ashley, who was increasingly aware of the growing closeness between her father and her best friend. Ashley's suspicions began to gnaw at her, creating a rift in her once solid friendship with Mia. She noticed the way Mia would linger a little too long in conversations with Jonathan, the way their laughter seemed to resonate with an intimacy that felt inappropriate. The more Ashley observed, the more her heart sank. She felt betrayed not only by her father, whose integrity she had always admired, but also by Mia, who had been her confidant and ally. The strain on their friendship became palpable, with Ashley struggling to voice her concerns without sounding accusatory. She found herself torn between her loyalty to her father and her instinct to protect her friendship with Mia, leading to a growing sense of isolation. The emotional turmoil Ashley faced was profound. She had always looked up to Jonathan as a moral compass, a man of faith who preached love and honesty. Now she found herself questioning everything she had believed about him. The man who had once been her hero was becoming a source of confusion and pain. Ashley grappled with feelings of betrayal, anger and sadness, struggling to reconcile the father she had known with the man who seemed to be crossing boundaries that should never have been crossed. The weight of these revelations felt unbearable, and she often found herself in tears, feeling as though the ground beneath her was shifting. As the tension escalated, Ashley confronted Mia about her concerns, hoping to clear the air and restore their friendship. However, the conversation only deepened the divide between them. Mia, defensive and hurt, insisted that her relationship with Jonathan was purely platonic. But Ashley could sense the underlying tension in her words. The more Ashley pressed, the more Mia withdrew, leaving Ashley feeling even more isolated. The friendship that had once been a source of strength now felt like a fragile thread fraying under the weight of unspoken truths and hidden emotions. In the midst of this turmoil, Ashley found herself spiraling into a state of emotional chaos. She felt trapped in a web of conflicting loyalties, unable to fully trust either her father or her friend. The idealized image of her family was crumbling, and with it, her sense of self. The betrayal she felt was not just about Jonathan's actions, but also about the loss of the innocence she had once associated with her family and friendships. As she navigated this painful landscape, Ashley realized that the journey ahead would require her to confront uncomfortable truths and make difficult choices about whom to trust and how to reclaim her sense of identity amidst the chaos. The bonds that once held her world together were now fraying, and she was left to grapple with the reality of betrayal and the emotional fallout that would inevitably follow. The pivotal moment in Ashley's tumultuous journey came unexpectedly, shattering the fragile remnants of her trust in both her father and her best friend. It was a typical afternoon when Ashley, feeling overwhelmed by the growing tension in her life, decided to take a break from her studies. As she wandered through the house, she noticed her father's phone left unattended on the kitchen counter. A sense of unease washed over her, but curiosity compelled her to take a closer look. She picked it up, intending to simply put it away, but her heart raced as she noticed a series of messages that caught her eye. The messages were between Jonathan and Mia, and as Ashley began to read, her stomach dropped. The tone was intimate, filled with flirtation and emotional confessions that crossed the line of friendship. Words like "miss you" and "can't stop thinking about you" leaped off the screen, each message a dagger to her heart. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. The bond she had sensed between them was not merely platonic, it was a betrayal of the deepest kind. Ashley felt her world tilt on its axis as the truth settled in, and she was left grappling with the enormity of what she had uncovered. Fueled by a mix of anger and heartbreak, Ashley confronted Jonathan that evening. The atmosphere in the house was thick with tension as she summoned the courage to face her father. When she finally found him in the living room, the weight of her discovery hung heavily in the air. "Dad, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. Jonathan looked up, confusion etched on his face, but Ashley pressed on, her emotions boiling over. "I saw the messages between you and Mia. How could you do this to us?" The confrontation was explosive. Jonathan's initial shock quickly morphed into defensiveness, and he attempted to downplay the situation. "Ashley, it's not what you think. Mia and I are just friends," he insisted. But Ashley could see the cracks in his facade. The depth of betrayal was palpable, and as she laid bare her feelings of hurt and confusion, Jonathan's demeanor shifted. The man who had always been her protector now stood before her, a stranger cloaked in denial. "You don't understand," he said, but Ashley cut him off, her voice rising. "No, Dad, you don't understand. You've betrayed our family, and you've betrayed me." The emotional impact of this revelation was profound. Ashley felt as if the ground beneath her had crumbled away, leaving her in a free fall of despair. The father she had idolized, the man who had taught her about integrity and love, was now the source of her greatest pain. The image of their family, once so perfect and unshakable, was now shattered, replaced by a haunting reality that left her feeling utterly alone. The betrayal cut deeper than she could have imagined, and as tears streamed down her face, she realized that her perception of her family had irrevocably changed. In that moment, Ashley understood that the trust she had placed in her father was gone, replaced by a profound sense of loss. The warmth of their home felt cold and unwelcoming, and the laughter that once filled the air was now replaced by an unbearable silence. The emotional turmoil she had been grappling with transformed into a fierce resolve. She would no longer allow herself to be a pawn in this painful game. The truth had been laid bare, and with it came the realization that she would need to forge her own path, one that would require strength and courage to confront the reality of her family's disintegration. In the weeks following Ashley's devastating discovery of her father's betrayal, the tension within the Williams household escalated to an unbearable level. The once warm and loving home had transformed into a battleground, with Ashley and Jonathan at the center of a storm fueled by anger, hurt, and unresolved emotions. Ashley, feeling betrayed and isolated, confronted her father repeatedly, demanding answers and accountability for his actions. Each confrontation was charged with raw emotion, as Ashley expressed her feelings of abandonment and confusion, while Jonathan, caught in a web of guilt and denial, struggled to maintain his composure. The conversations quickly devolved into heated arguments, with Ashley accusing Jonathan of destroying their family, and Jonathan attempting to justify his actions, insisting that he had not meant for things to escalate as they had. The emotional toll on both of them was immense, and the once unbreakable bond between father and daughter was now frayed and fragile. Ashley's pain was palpable, and she often found herself in tears, feeling as though she was losing not only her father but also her sense of self. Jonathan, on the other hand, was increasingly desperate to maintain control over the situation, feeling cornered by the consequences of his actions. One fateful evening, the confrontation reached a boiling point. Ashley, overwhelmed by the weight of her emotions, confronted Jonathan once more, demanding that he take responsibility for the chaos he had caused. The argument escalated quickly, with both voices rising in anger. In a moment of desperation, Jonathan lashed out, his frustration boiling over. The confrontation turned violent as he pushed Ashley, who stumbled backward, hitting her head against the edge of a table. The impact was sudden and catastrophic, and in that instant, everything changed. As Ashley lay on the floor, unconscious and bleeding, Jonathan's world shattered around him. Panic surged through him as he realized the gravity of what had just occurred. In a frantic attempt to cover up his crime, he quickly assessed the situation, his mind racing with thoughts of how to avoid the consequences of his actions. He knew that the truth would destroy not only his life, but also the lives of those he loved. In a moment of sheer desperation, he decided to stage the scene, manipulating the evidence to suggest that Ashley had fallen accidentally. The immediate aftermath was chaotic. Jonathan called for help, feigning concern as he dialed 911, his voice trembling with false urgency. When the paramedics arrived, he played the role of the distraught father, desperately trying to maintain his composure while inside he was unraveling. As they rushed Ashley to the hospital, Jonathan's mind was consumed with fear and guilt. He knew that the truth would eventually come to light, but he was determined to protect himself at all costs. In the days that followed, as Ashley fought for her life in the hospital, Jonathan's attempts to cover up his actions became increasingly frantic. He distanced himself from the family and friends who had once been his support system, fearing that they would see through his facade. He crafted elaborate lies to explain Ashley's condition, portraying himself as a grieving father rather than the man responsible for the tragedy. The weight of his deception hung heavily on him, and as the reality of what he had done began to sink in, he found himself trapped in a web of guilt and fear. The investigation into Ashley's tragic death began with the arrival of the police at the Williams family home, where the scene had been meticulously staged by Jonathan. As first responders entered the house, they were met with the sight of Ashley lying on the floor, unconscious and bleeding. Jonathan, playing the role of the distraught father, recounted a harrowing tale of how Ashley had fallen while they were arguing, emphasizing that it was a tragic accident. The initial police response was swift, with officers securing the scene and calling for medical assistance. However, as they began to piece together the events leading up to Ashley's injury, subtle inconsistencies in Jonathan's account began to raise eyebrows. The staged crime scene, while initially convincing, contained elements that did not align with Jonathan's narrative. Investigators noted the lack of any signs of a struggle, which seemed at odds with the intensity of the argument Jonathan had described. Furthermore, the positioning of Ashley's body and the nature of her injuries suggested a more violent encounter than a simple fall. As the police delved deeper into the investigation, they began to scrutinize Jonathan's behavior. His emotional responses appeared rehearsed, and his insistence on portraying himself as a victim of circumstance only fueled their suspicions. The community, once enamored with the Williams family, began to question the integrity of the man they had long respected. As the investigation progressed, Mia Carter, who had been a close friend of Ashley's, found herself grappling with her own feelings of guilt and confusion. She had witnessed the growing tension between Ashley and Jonathan and had sensed the underlying issues that had plagued their family. Mia's initial instinct was to support Jonathan, believing his account of events, but as the investigation unfolded, she began to have doubts. The more she learned about the circumstances surrounding Ashley's death, the more she felt compelled to speak up. Mia's role in the investigation became pivotal when she decided to approach the police with her concerns. After several sleepless nights filled with anxiety and regret, she finally mustered the courage to share what she knew. During her interview with the detectives, Mia revealed the intimate conversations she had shared with Jonathan, including the emotional support he had sought from her during the turmoil within the Williams family. She recounted how Jonathan had confided in her about his struggles, but she also disclosed the moments that had felt inappropriate, raising questions about the nature of their relationship. Mia's eventual confession sent shockwaves through the investigation. Her insights provided a new perspective on Jonathan's character and the events leading up to Ashley's death. The detectives began to connect the dots, realizing that Jonathan's actions were not merely those of a grieving father, but rather those of a man desperate to conceal the truth. Mia's testimony, combined with the inconsistencies in Jonathan's account, prompted the police to dig deeper into the circumstances surrounding Ashley's tragic fall. The community's reaction to the investigation was one of disbelief and heartbreak. The Williams family had been seen as a model of virtue and strength, and the revelation of such turmoil within their ranks shattered the illusion of perfection. Friends and neighbors who had once admired Jonathan now found themselves questioning their own perceptions, grappling with the reality that the man they had trusted could be capable of such betrayal. As the investigation unfolded, the community rallied around Ashley's memory, demanding justice and seeking answers to the questions that lingered in the air. The tragic loss of a bright young woman had ignited a firestorm of emotions, and the quest for truth became a collective effort as the community sought to understand how such a tragedy could occur within their midst. The courtroom proceedings surrounding Jonathan Williams' trial for the tragic death of his daughter Ashley were marked by intense emotions and a palpable sense of grief. As the trial commenced, the prosecution laid out a compelling case against Jonathan, presenting a narrative that painted him as a man driven by desperation and betrayal. The prosecution's strategy hinged on the emotional testimonies of Ashley's family and friends who took the stand to share their memories of her vibrant spirit and the profound impact her loss had on their lives. Each testimony was a poignant reminder of the bright future that had been stolen away, and the courtroom was often filled with tears as loved ones recounted their cherished moments with Ashley. Ashley's mother, Grace, delivered a heart-wrenching account of her daughter's dreams and aspirations, describing how Ashley had always been a source of light in their family. Her voice trembled as she spoke of the void left in their lives, emphasizing the deep sense of betrayal she felt toward Jonathan. "He was supposed to protect her," Grace said, her eyes filled with anguish. "Instead, he took her away from us." The emotional weight of her testimony resonated throughout the courtroom, leaving many in attendance visibly shaken. Friends like Mia also took the stand, sharing their memories of Ashley and the growing tension they had witnessed between her and Jonathan. Mia's confession about her own struggles with guilt added another layer of complexity to the prosecution's case, illustrating the emotional turmoil that had enveloped the Williams family. As the prosecution presented its evidence, it became increasingly clear that Jonathan's defense would face an uphill battle. The forensic evidence collected at the scene contradicted Jonathan's claims of an accidental fall, revealing signs of a violent struggle. The medical examiner testified about the nature of Ashley's injuries, which were consistent with an altercation rather than a simple accident. The prosecution also highlighted Jonathan's attempts to cover up the truth, detailing how he had manipulated the crime scene and misled investigators in the immediate aftermath of Ashley's death. Each piece of evidence painted a damning picture of a father who had not only betrayed his daughter but had also attempted to evade justice. In contrast, the defense struggled to counter the overwhelming evidence against Jonathan. They attempted to portray him as a loving father who had made a tragic mistake in a moment of heightened emotion. The defense argued that Ashley's death was an unfortunate accident, emphasizing Jonathan's grief and the pressure he had faced as a community leader. However, their efforts fell flat in the face of the compelling testimonies and the forensic evidence presented by the prosecution. As the trial progressed, it became increasingly difficult for the defense to maintain their narrative, and Jonathan's demeanor in the courtroom shifted from one of confidence to one of despair. The community's response to Jonathan's trial was deeply divided. Many, who had once admired him as a respected pastor and leader, found themselves grappling with the reality of the accusations against him. Some members of the community rallied around Jonathan, believing in his innocence and viewing the trial as a tragic misunderstanding. They argued that he was a victim of circumstance, a father who had lost his way in a moment of emotional turmoil. Others, however, were outraged by the evidence presented and the betrayal they felt from a man they had trusted. The emotional testimonies from Ashley's family and friends resonated with many, igniting a call for justice that echoed throughout the community. As the trial unfolded, the courtroom became a microcosm of the larger community, reflecting the deep divisions and conflicting emotions surrounding the case. The quest for truth and justice for Ashley became a rallying cry as the community sought to honor her memory while grappling with the painful reality of betrayal and loss. The proceedings served not only as a legal battle, but also as a poignant reminder of the fragility of trust and the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition and emotional turmoil. The trial of Jonathan Williams culminated in a verdict that sent shockwaves through the community and forever altered the lives of those involved. After days of emotional testimonies and compelling evidence presented by the prosecution, the jury deliberated for several hours before returning with a guilty verdict on charges of manslaughter and obstruction of justice. The courtroom erupted in a mixture of relief and sorrow as the judge pronounced Jonathan's sentence 10 years in prison, a decision that reflected both the gravity of his actions and the profound loss of Ashley's life. For many, the verdict brought a sense of justice, but it was bittersweet, as it could never truly fill the void left by Ashley's tragic death. In the immediate aftermath of the trial, the impact of Ashley's death weighed heavily on her family and friends. Grace and Jonathan's relationship was irrevocably shattered, with Grace grappling with feelings of betrayal and loss. The once close-knit family was now fractured, struggling to navigate the emotional fallout of Jonathan's actions. Grace often found herself reflecting on the memories of Ashley, haunted by the dreams and aspirations that would never come to fruition. The emotional scars ran deep, and the family faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives in the wake of such a profound tragedy. Ashley's friends, particularly Mia, also felt the lasting effects of her death. Mia was consumed by guilt, believing that she could have done more to protect Ashley from the turmoil that had engulfed their family. The bond that had once united her and Ashley was now tinged with the weight of unspoken truths and hidden emotions. The community, too, was left to grapple with the reality of the tragedy as they sought to understand how such a devastating event could occur within their midst. The trial and its aftermath served as a poignant reminder of the fragility of trust and the profound impact of betrayal, leaving a lasting mark on all who had been touched by Ashley's life and untimely death.